This is a Crowd podcast.
So why are you talking to me?
I think it's going to create a lot of people starting to look over their shoulder that have done things that maybe they thought they got away with. And I also think it's going to make people that are in the process of doing things, bad things, stop for a minute and go, that big crazy son of a bitch with those guys, what if they call him? And then there's going to be people that are going to be like, man, that guy comes, I'm just going to kill him. Well, I have been shot, I have been stabbed, I have been beaten, and I'm still here.
This time on American Vigilante.
A pretty incredible situation that I honestly never had come across before. I was approached by a member of the Mexican Mafia.
I suppose the big question in all of this, and you're no doubt thinking what I'm thinking, is KC making all of this up?
When I started all this, it never meant to become what it's become.
Is he a master storyteller?
I buried both my thumbs into his eye sockets and he screamed so bad. It sounded like somebody was tearing his guts out.
Is he someone who has spent years creating this fantastical alter ego?
I'm a monster hunter.
Can this really be true? Did he really go on all these missions? Rescue all these people? Really?
My children are very well trained in hand-to-hand combat, edged weapons and handguns and rifles.
There are a few niggles when he's told me, I was 6 hours from this and then I arrived at 9 a.m. and I thought, well, what, you left at 3 a.m.? How did you know where someone was at 3 a.m.? Or could I recall to the exact moment things that happened a decade ago? Of course not. And yet he can remember with vivid precision the type of fabric that a bag was made out of, a meal somebody ate. If he's a fantasist, he's an incredible one.
I kicked that door as hard as I've ever kicked anything in my life. And I heard the distinctive sound at that very second of a 45. Boom, 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 boom.
To have created these entire worlds down to such detail. And I'll tell you, some of these stories he's told me a couple of times over, a few weeks apart, and the details remain the same. And yet there are niggles. Is he so deep in this world that he has created it down to the very last blade of grass? Or is this the way his mind works? I don't know if I'll ever find out, but I really want to keep talking to him. I'm Sam Walker, and this is American Vigilante, Episode 5, Knock Knock.
So Sam, just so you know, you actually know more about my life right now than my own family.
Which I kind of don't know how to take.
I know, it's weird.
Because I think,
strange for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I spent my entire life covering that stuff, and it was really hard for me. Really was. I mean, to start talking to somebody like you that's a stranger. I don't know you. I don't know anything about you. And here I am spewing my guts to you. And yeah, it's never been my deal. I don't have any issues talking to you.
What is it like saying all of this out loud over such a short, intensive period?
Violating. I mean, the thing is I've made a commitment to do this for many reasons. But to give you an idea of how close this stuff has been kept to the vest, there are team members that are going to hear these stories and they're going to be like, oh, fuck, that's the one you wouldn't tell me about. Because if you're not on a job, you don't get to know about the job. The lines that I'm stepping over here with you are huge lines because they were part of the code. And all the stuff that I'm doing now, this was voted on. I'm not just free range said, hey, I'm KC and I'm going to go do what I want to do. It wasn't like that. This was a conscious decision by the team.
I continue to be perplexed by KC. His stories, of course, but even while recording, his relationship with phones.
Oh, let me turn that off. I'm sorry.
It seems like they're the bane of his life.
The thing is that right whenever we were dealing with those three, they were firing guns. Yeah, sorry about that.
And he said this, didn't he? In The Marine's Wife, our last episode.
Those numbers aren't on a mobile phone, they're in my head. Every one of them. Every contact number I have, I dial.
And so many of his stories include things like, well, if you've hired me, you're only to call me if you've got essential information. And even then, he'll say that you must go and buy a cell phone and use it only once.
Anything electronic can be compromised. You put something on text, it's forever. There's centers in the United States that record every conversation. So the only way to truly move without being detected is to not carry electronics with you.
But phones clearly are also the lifeblood of his work.
Say again, I'm sorry, I was receiving a message I had to read.
Because when people need him, they got to call him.
You know, there's things that happen that you're going to have to hold on a second. Okay, I have to take this call.
Casey's latest jaw-dropping story for us starts when he gets a call that he never expects from someone in the Mexican Mafia that he calls Ray.
And at first, of course, I thought maybe it was a setup. I was trying to think if I had done anything that had crossed them in any way. You know, if I had taken any of their money at a time or raided one of their houses. But I'd never done anything like that. Never done anything that would make them be retaliatory toward me. So I got hold of Murphy and I got hold of Droppy. I said, look, I'm going to go and meet this person. One way or another, this needs to be dealt with because I said, if it's a setup, we need to end it. I said, and if it's something happens to me, I need you guys to follow up on this. Well, both of them immediately are like, well, you're not going to go do this alone. So I went ahead and set up the meet. And I've got to say that for the first time, I was truly shocked. So this guy is a gang member in the Mexican Mafia, and he's high up the food chain. And it's an area where he lives, there's no bad activities allowed. And I mean, it's a big area. There's no drugs allowed. Nothing that he can control is allowed in these areas because his family lives there, right? I, of course, had to follow up on this stuff, and, well, I'm meeting with this person, and I'm meeting them at a McDonald's. I am. I wanted to make sure it was very public, not that they care, but I did, and I had to have a place where my guys could be easily accessible. We're talking, and I'm just in awe that he wants me to help him. I'm like, man, you've got bigger wheels than I do. You know, what are you asking for me for? And he goes, well, he said, our methods are rather extreme. He said, I don't want my neighbors being hurt. I don't want the community being hurt. I don't want my children being hurt. And I told him, I'm like, well, look, I said, I don't do work for drug dealers. I don't take out rival gangs. That's not our thing. And he looked me straight in the eye and he goes, check this out. His son goes to school in a local school. And what's happened is a rival gang has moved into the area and set up a drug house less than 2 blocks from his son's school. Also directly across from a type of retirement community. That's what got me. And everything he told me was true. Everything. The drug stuff in that area was extremely minimal. I mean, his people didn't traffic in the area at all. And anytime there was a problem in the area, they'd threaten people and things wouldn't happen. They kept that area safe. As crazy as it sounds, they kept that area safe. Okay? And this was something that in order for him to have made it safe, it would have been a mess. They would have had to go in the way they go in, guns blazing, and it would have been bad.
And is this in Mexico or is this in the States?
I won't disclose the location.
I was just wondering whether the Mexican Mafia operate within the United States.
They do.
They do. Okay.
They operate in the United States.
Right.
Hell, everything does. Russian Mafia does. The Asian Mafia does. I mean, you got Tong in Seattle. I mean, they're all here. So I told him I'd take the job, and told him how much we were going to charge him. And I didn't charge him the flat rate. I gave him a dollar amount. I said, this is how much you're going to pay me. And he just said, no problem.
Was it a lot of money?
Yeah, it was a good chunk of change. It was a really good chunk of change. And there was a lot of conditions that I gave to this man on top that I'm not telling you about. A lot of conditions. I told them we also keep any assets that we take from the place. I said, if there's any drugs in the place, I said, it doesn't go to you. I said, we're going to dispense with it. And that's one thing, they won't break an agreement with you. So this conditions came with a lot of teeth. We set up surveillance on the house for 2 days, just checking, and real heavy volume of traffic. Harleys and bikes coming in and out of there constantly. Fancy cars on 22-inch wheels in an area these vehicles just didn't belong. And I was like, holy shit. I mean, this isn't like some guy dealing little 1/8 grams of whatever you deal. This is somebody moving some stuff. It was a tough place to get into. The area was completely congested with housing. The only real access point we had, there was a house that had a huge yard. It was landscaped, didn't have any trees or shrubs around the perimeter. But around the house, there was no dog, and thank God there was no fence around it. Then we can get over into the ditch line, and we would be able to go down this ditch because it was 3 to 4 feet deep, and to get to where the house was. And that would protect us from anybody driving by, couldn't see us, and it would, take care of an ingress and egress where we'd get in and out. Well, that was for shit. The best laid plans in the world, let me tell you, it doesn't matter. So here we are trying to get in there, and you had to get across this big open area. And you got to understand, there's streets, a main thoroughfare going down one side and another. So it's open. This whole area is open. I'm pretty good at moving, even though I'm big and not being seen. I managed to crawl across that whole damn yard, my great big ass, not be seen. Took my time. I mean, it took me probably about 45 minutes to move, because I had to move slowly, so I looked just like, a rock, a blob, something. If I had to move too fast, movement catches the eye. So I get clear across, and I'm in a big shrub that's next to the good guy house. Now, from this house to the bad guy's house is still another half a block. Well, one of my guys is crawling across. In fact, I think it was Murphy. His profile crawling doesn't look like mine. Mine looks like maybe a rock moving across. His looks like a giant snake or something. And he got spotted. His ass was sticking in the air at the wrong time. Somebody's looking out of the house. I don't remember exactly what happened. But all of a sudden, we hear, what the hell are you doing out there? And the thing is I told the guys, I was like, look, if anything happens, don't try to hide. You're in the open. I said, stand up like you're a bad guy and just walk away. Don't run, walk. And that's what he did. We were in an area that was swarmed with people that were not on our side. And putting yourself in those positions, you have to blend with the environment any way you can. And in that area, in those situations, there are a lot of bad guys. So if you are all of a sudden taking off, running down a road, and you're obviously not recognizable as one of their crew, then you stand out. So, when I told him to stand up like a bad guy, that meant stand up like you were one of the bad guys and just walk away. And it works. So him and Droppy went and got into the vehicle that was still another half mile away from that location. They just walked down the road and whatever and walked away. Well, now here I am. I'm stuck. I'm like, you fucker, right? Now I've got to leave. And so here I was. I had to get the hell out of there. So I did a lot of ditch line crawling and managed to get out. I had to go to a wooded area that was farther down the road about a mile, and then I was able to contact them, and we'd left a radio in a certain area that we could be picked up, because we don't carry electronics on us when we're working.
Don't take this the wrong way, but judging by the amount of crawling that you're doing here, I'm assuming this story was some time ago. What were you like physically in your peak?
A lot of this is going to be hard to digest, but in my peak condition, I pissed napalm, fucked nuclear waste, and ate concertina wire. I was a fucking badass. And that's a line out of a Clint Eastwood movie, but it fucking fit. I weighed 267 pounds. I could run a 40-yard dash in 4.7 seconds. I could run a mile in my boots on uneven terrain in 4 minutes and 59 seconds. I could run 3 miles in 16 minutes and 42 seconds. I could do 148 push-ups, and that's with somebody laying in front of me with their hand underneath me in 2 minutes. I was working out one time at a gym, and there was some big steroid yoked up freak there, and And this guy had watched me work out for a couple weeks, and he was shooting off his mouth. He's like, oh, yeah, that pussy over there, I never see him go heavy. He's just big and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I tell you what, why don't you put your money where your mouth is? He goes, what you got? I said, $50. I said, I'll put up what you got on your bar right there. And he started laughing. He had like 535 pounds sitting on that bar. So I went over there and I grabbed it and I said, give me your money. He set the money up there on the thing and I picked it up and I repped it 3 times. So I don't know what my max is, but I do know that I put up 535 pounds 3 times at the end of a chest workout one time.
So if that was then, what sort of shape would you say you're in now?
So I'm nowhere near as fast as I used to be, but I've learned to read situations better, read people better, and respond quicker to certain situations because I know that I don't have the time or efficiency as I did before. So in a nutshell, I've gotten a lot fucking meaner as I've gotten older.
Right, back to the story. 3 or so days after one of the team was spotted crossing that lawn, they decide to have another crack at it.
Well, this time Droppy wanted to go first. He didn't make it. He didn't make it a third of the way across. That guy must have been watching his backyard like a hawk, because all of a sudden he's like, what the hell are you doing out there? And the outside lights came on this time, and the guy's out there with a flashlight, and Droppy's like, oh, he gets up, he walks off. And me and Murphy are laughing our asses off. We're like, oh yeah, you're a real sneaky fucker. You didn't even make it halfway. He's like, fuck you guys. So, it's funny, but it's not funny, right?
Being spotted yet again, KC decides to leave it another week before what will probably be their last chance of getting into that drug house.
We gave him another week because I wanted the area to calm down. I knew that guy was going to, probably call the police, and the police were going to be patrolling the area. So we'd still been watching the place, and we knew that there was, people coming in and out constantly. But there was one night a week. There was no traffic. It's like, I don't know if they were getting resupplied. I don't know. But there was no people coming in and out. Pulled Murphy and Droppy aside, and I told him, I said, look, we're going to drive right up this house, kick the door in, go in there and fuck everybody up, and then we're going to be gone. And they're both looking at me like I'm stupid. I said, it's the last thing they'll expect. I said, it's the only way we're going to get in there. And Murphy's like, I'm game. And Droppy's like, fuck it, sounds good to me.
Stand by for the drug house raid. KC gets dark. And for the first time, I get really frustrated with him. All that after this break.
It was terrifying.
Laura Kellier is a single mom in her late 40s. She's not the kind of person you think of when you think of protesters.
But if you could be out there, you had to be out there. It was time.
Laura Kellier wanted a revolution, but she also wanted to connect with the spirit of her son.
I still look for him.
Laura's son, Sean Kellier, was killed in 2019. To this day, his killing is an open investigation. For Laura, 2020 was a kind of ghost story.
Why do we not get justice?
Sean was at the extreme end of American politics before American politics became extreme. Sean's community of anti-fascists believe that government is working against them. What happened the night Sean was killed? Is the state biased against anti-fascists? Will police really not solve this case because they hated Sean and his politics? I'm Sergio Olmos from Oregon Public Broadcasting and Something Else. This is The Fault Line, Season 2, Dying for a Fight. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
You've watched them in unforgettable adventures, love affairs, and tragedies. Now it's time to hear their own remarkable stories. From the makers of Death of a Rock Star and Death of a Sports Star, this is Death of a Film Star.
And action.
Starring Heath Ledger, Marilyn Monroe, Chadwick Boseman, Robin Williams, Carrie Fisher, and Bruce Lee. Search for Death of a Film Star in your podcast app. You've seen them tell stories. Now it's time to tell theirs.
So we return to the story Knock Knock. And Casey, Murph, and Troppy, who we haven't met before this, are preparing themselves to raid the drug house.
So they all start putting on their bulletproof vests. Droppy pulls his out and he starts putting it on. Murph pulls his out and he's putting it on. He's like, hey, Casey, here's one for you. I'm like, I ain't wearing one. You know I ain't going to wear a vest. He goes, what do you mean you ain't going to wear a vest? I said, I ain't wearing no fucking vest. I said, slow me down too much. You know that. And he goes, well, fuck you. You ain't wearing one. I ain't wearing one. So he takes it off. Droppy's like, I fucking ain't wearing one either. He throws his off and all of a sudden Murphy goes, give me my vest. I'm putting it back on. He puts his vest back on.
So you don't like the vests?
Well, the thing about bulletproof vests, in my opinion, is they're just not worth it. The reason is your standard bulletproof vest will only stop a handgun. Your 9mm, your 40 caliber, your 45, your 357. But, if somebody's using a AR-15, an AK-47, any hunting rifle, it's going to punch right through a bulletproof vest. And if somebody's got a big caliber handgun and shoots you multiple times with it, the vest will stop the bullet from penetrating, but it won't stop the bullet from breaking your ribs, rupturing your liver, rupturing your spleen. But they protect your organs, your vital organs. Some guys on my team, choose to wear them, but they only choose to wear light duty ones. And then depending on what we're doing, there are some of them that will occasionally wear a vest that's got a big heavy trauma plate in the front. And the trauma plates are capable of stopping a 30-06 round, which is that's a heavy round that'll travel 1,200 meters. And, there are a lot of instances where bulletproof vests have saved people's lives, which is great. But bulletproof vest doesn't protect your legs, your thighs, you got femoral arteries in them, your head. So me personally, I never wear one. The weight of the bulletproof vest slows me down. It also puts my equipment in different positions so that it's not as accessible. They slow down my ability to draw a weapon quicker, to access reloads, to do a lot of things, because they put them in unnatural positions on your body because of the thickness of the vest. So anyway, I says, Droppy, I said, I need you to pull rear. I said, you're going to stay outside. I said, I need you to handle anything that happens outside. No matter what happens in there, I said, you don't come in. I said, I can't have a surprise. And he's like, okay, good. So we all got ready, and we drove down the road just like normal. We'd made one pass first. We went around the far side, come the opposite direction, made a complete pass, went back up. We pulled right up the house. There was nobody outside. Shut the lights off on the vehicle, got out, did not close the doors. That's the biggest key right there. You hear a bunch of doors slam, I don't care who you are. Somebody pulls up to your house. What's the first thing you hear? It's not the car pulling up. It's thump, 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 right? I stepped out of the car and was already running toward the door. Murphy was right behind me. Hand was on my shoulder. I don't know what Droppy did. Droppy was doing whatever he was supposed to do, but he's on his own. I didn't even slow down. I kicked that door as hard as I've ever kicked anything in my life. And the funniest thing happened that I'd ever had happen, because I'd never had this one happen. The door actually came off the latch, the hinges broke, and the door tumbled across in the air and hit the far side of the room. Murphy started laughing. I didn't even slow down. I couldn't. I had a full head of steam. I ran straight through the door. There was a couch in front of me. There was a wall with a big mirror on it. There was a big chair to my left. I bounced off the couch on my shoulder and had my weapon pointed toward the kitchen. And I heard the distinctive sound at that very second of a 45. Boom, 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 boom. Couldn't believe I didn't get shot. Murph couldn't believe he didn't get shot. We see flames shooting through the doorway of the kitchen. He's still emptying the gun at the door. We're not even there. And Murphy is still laughing, and he's kind of on top of me. And I'm like, you hit? He goes, no. And I'm like, good. I said, clear the hall. So he cleared back rooms and hallway, and there was nobody back there. He came back out, and he did this fast, and I mean fast. From the kitchen, we heard like 3 or 4 voices. So I knew there was 3 or 4 people in there. And as I'm on this side of the wall, Murph's right behind me, and I'm peeping, and they're kind of in the very back. I can see the tail of a motorcycle. It ended up being a GSXR, I think 1100. And the guy's standing there. I could see his hands and the gun, and his hands are shaking. And I hear him, reload that thing, reload that thing. And I'm like, you got 2 seconds to come out. I said, I'm going to kill you. And the guy's shaking, and I said, come out right now. He comes out, I said, drop the weapon. And he drops it on the floor. I said, tell your buddy to come out with you. And he had two of his guys came out with him. And just then, Droppy comes running in through the door. And he's like, holy shit, man. He goes, that was the coolest thing I've ever seen. I'll follow you to hell. And I'm like, get the fuck outside. So he's like, that's so cool. And Murph's all smiling still, and he runs back outside. Now, this front guy that came out is a freaking monster. I'm not kidding you. He was easily as tall as Murphy. Thick, dark hair. Big, strong, lean guy. And he was the boss. He's like, you got any fucking idea who I am? And I'm like, well, but how are you shaking? I said, it doesn't seem like you're too much anything of a big guy to me. And his guys are behind him, but he's trying to save face. And I says, take your clothes off right now. And he looks at me, he says, what? I said, take your clothes off. So this guy's shaking and his hands are in the air. And I made that guy take his clothes off right in front of me. And he pissed himself right there. He's pissing all over the floor. And I said, you turn around. I said, I'm going to have some of that sweet ass, buddy. And he was shaking and scared. And he's like, please don't kill me. Please don't kill me. And his guys are looking at him. And they're glaring at me. And he turned around and I said, grab hold of that table. And everybody's like smiling except his guys. And I put my hand on his back and I said, if I ever see you again, I said, you're going to be mine the rest of your life. I said, do you understand me? And he was like, yeah. And I said, now turn around. He turned around. I said, give me that necklace. He takes his necklace off and he hands it to me and I put it on right in front of him. I said, give me your watch. He hands me his watch and now he's standing there completely naked in front of me. Completely humiliated. And I told him, I says, tomorrow when the light hits this place, I said, there better not be any sign of you. I said, and I better not ever hear you being around here again.
What was it about him that triggered you so much? Because the way you behaved with him, I haven't heard you talk like that. I haven't heard about you behaving in that way with somebody else.
People that run gangs thrive on fear within their own entities. They call it respect, but it's not respect. They're the leader because they're feared. They know that if they cross that person, they're going to get killed, and not just them. They'll kill their families. They'll kill their kids, their wives, their grandparents. They're ruthless. So the only way to earn what they call respect is to let them know what you're capable of. So I terrified him. And he was the guy that opened up on us, me and Murph, through the door. It was 16 or 17 rounds out of a 45? That's one of the things he was saying whenever he was shaking. He goes, I can't believe you just ran through the hail of bullets and came at me. He goes, I've never seen anything like that in my life. So I struck fear in that man's heart by coming into his home, into his business, made him take his clothes off in front of his big, tough lieutenants. And that night, he thought I was going to have sex with him right there in front of all those people. He really did. Made him give me his jewelry. Told him that I was going to be his boyfriend. And let him know very clearly that there was nothing he could do about it. Yeah, I humiliated him. That's all they understand. Is pure dominance. These animals.
Did you have any concerns the fact there was gunfire in a residential neighborhood, that the police would be there within minutes? There was no sign of them that night at all?
Oh, no, the sirens were coming when I left, believe me. So Murphy's like, dibs on the bike. And I'm like, it's yours. So he goes and hops on this bike, and he's in the kitchen facing a door, and he's like, Rama, and he hops on it. And out he goes outside. And I last see him, he's riding a wheelie away. And I hear a Harley fire up. And it's Droppy. And Droppy's like, dibs on the Harley. And I'm like, you fuckers. And off he goes in the Harley. I went and got in the car and left. And that drug house was vacated the next day. The drugs that we found there, I ended up taking with us. It was methamphetamine and heroin, and there were very large packs of it. We ended up burning in a burn barrel with a bunch of tires and toxic crap that was really nasty. We did find a chunk of money there, and we found out that the Harley actually was stolen a few states away from a man. It was one of the Mongols, actually. So we did return the bike to him. And the gentleman that I humiliated so badly quit drugs completely. Went on to have a very good professional career and has a great job now. It scared him so bad, it scared him straight that night. That was it. They shut the drug house down. And to this day, that entire community is a much safer place. We created a ripple that will never go away because they know that there's somebody out there that will come and deal with their shit.
Do you always check up on the people that you've had altercations with further down the road?
No. I did this time because, remember, I told you that I'd made an agreement with Ray and that agreement had to be abided by. So that community became my personal pet project for the rest of my life.
What's the difference between that gang leader you humiliated and the evil things that he'd done and Ray?
Well, I don't know. I mean, is there a difference? I don't know. I've never seen any of Ray's work. I don't know where Ray's network is. I don't. I got no clue.
I'm wondering, though, how that sits with your moral code. The fact that you are on the payroll, even for a short period, of somebody who clearly has done a lot of the things that in another job you'd be stopping.
We're going to stop there. I was on the payroll of a father.
Well, how do you know the guy you humiliated also wasn't a father?
Well, the guy humiliated was a piece of shit. Ray, at that point when he contacted me, was a father. He didn't have to tell me he was part of the Mexican Mafia. He could have just, I was being referred to him. I would have done this for him no matter what. Now, do I condone what he does or used to do? Hell no, I don't. But do I know exactly what he did? No, I've got an idea. But Ray'd never come across my radar. And I can tell you this, by doing what we did that night, I saved cops' lives. Because it would have been a matter of time. That place would have got bigger and bigger, and these people were very well connected. There would have been a time, sooner or later, that something would have happened, and some cop or cops would have either had to respond to something and got killed or shot, or they themselves would have pulled one of these guys over that had too much drugs with them and maybe a delivery or something, and they would have got killed. So we did a shitload of good that night.
Do you think there should be more people like you or fewer people like you around?
I think there should be more.
So how do you...
There's a lot of people like me around.
There are. But...
I think by you saying like me or people, I think you mean, and I could be wrong, I think you mean people that think the way I do, not necessarily do what I do.
No, I'm thinking about the sort of person who feels so morally outraged by what they see happening, by what they perceive to be, and they could be completely right, a complete failure in the law, complete failure of the justice system. They see, as you have said to me, bad things happening to good people, families being devastated, and they believe it is their job, their right, their role to go and sort that out. Now, when you think that, Casey, you have got decades of military training. You've got decades of experience. You are an intelligent man. Hold
on a second. I'm going to stop you right here. I don't care about all that,
But it's super important if you're going...
No. We're going to go back in time here.
Okay.
There was a time when there was no training in anything and people just took care of their own shit. They took care of the business. I mean, right now you've got criminals, murderers, rapists, burglars being dumped out of prisons and in jails.
Okay,
jails are crowded.
That's the one side of it. The other side of it is when a bunch of vigilantes in the UK not too long ago decided they were sick of the justice system not going hard enough on paedophiles. And they went round and they confronted the houses of paediatricians. Kids' doctors,
because
hang on a minute, because they didn't have the intelligence to actually think through, and they didn't have that moral code in order to go and do that job correctly. And the fact is, if you're saying, I think there should be more people like me around, you are going to get so many mistakes. You are going to get people's lives ruined. You say you will never enter someone's house unless you're convinced they're the bad guy.
You're comparing apples and oranges.
I'm not.
You said people like me. If they're like me, they're going to be well thought. There's a big difference.
There is a big difference.
You're now saying people like me, and then you're comparing me to a bunch of people that ran rampant being idiots. That's not fair.
No, you know what I am trying to say to you.
I know what you're trying to say, but what I'm saying is accurate.
But you're picking at the wrong bits. You're picking at the wrong bits, me. You know what I'm trying to say is that if you call to arms, let's take back our country, let's fight the bad guys ourselves because we don't trust in the law.
It's not that. It's not that. There's too many. The point I'm trying to make is there's too many. You know, there's a saying in the U.S. When seconds count, law enforcement is minutes away. Cops can't be everywhere. It's impossible. And then because of protocol, they have to take time to write reports. They got to take time to do things.
I understand
It's
this.
impossible.
So what's the alternative? Because most people aren't like you, Casey.
You need people like me that are willing to help out law enforcement.
You think there's enough people like you who are as smart as you, trained as you, have as strong as moral code as you?
You have no idea how many military people there are that are just like me, that want nothing more than to be turned loose. Because I'll tell you what, you want to see shit get cleaned up quick? You turn the dogs loose. And I'll tell you what, you'll find out how quickly everything toes the line. Because they're not going to be the people that go breaking into innocent people's homes. They're not going to be.
But there are going to be a bunch of those as well, don't you think? Those people are just going to stay at home and go, do you know what? I've thought about it. I don't have the intelligence to track this person down. I don't have the intelligence to do the due diligence. I don't really have the proper moral code. I tell you what, I'll stay at home and let KC handle it. Or they're going to go, he did it, I can do it. And they're going to do that.
You know, that goes back to being 18 again, doesn't it? People are accountable for their actions. I'm not justifying or condoning anything. I'm just talking about what I have done. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've backed up law enforcement. Hell, I come upon a cop one time, you know, a guy was loose in a building with an AK-47 and hostages, and he had no backup coming. He was shitting himself. And I pulled right up, and I told him straight, I'm like, you want me to help you out? I'll help you out. And he goes, buddy, he goes, I'll take all the help I can get. And when I opened up my rig and started pulling crap out, he's like, holy shit. And I said, I'll secure the back. Don't let anybody come back there. I just a few years ago, you know, driving down the freeway, a state trooper was taking down a car. 4 guys started getting out of the car. I pulled up sideways, come out with a gun. I said, trooper, you need backup? He says, yes, sir, I do. He didn't ask me who I was or nothing because he knew that he was getting quickly put in a position where he was in bad shape. You know, all it takes for the forces of evil to prevail is for one good man to do nothing. And that's a fact. You know, I don't know where you live, Sam, but let's say in your area there's somebody running around and burning down houses and robbing people and beating them in the streets. And all of a sudden you've got somebody that just gets fed up. They live there in that area. And they're like, you know what? I'm going to go do something about this because there ain't no cops around. There ain't nobody else doing nothing. What am I going to do? Do you wait until they come into your house? Fuck that. The U.S. all the time goes to other countries and kicks the shit out of people because sooner or later they're going to come here and do it if we don't. So do you wait when somebody's running around your neighborhood shooting and burning until it comes to your house, or do you go out and deal with it?
If you take a kind of long view of society and how societies are structured, there's a whole school of thought and true belief system that, in fact, in order for a society to function, then actually the state needs to have the monopoly on violence, the right to punish. Because if everyone has the right to punish and the accountability in that I'm an adult, I'm going to do this because this is my moral code, then society breaks down. So
you think that if somebody comes into your house...
I'm not thinking anything. I'm telling
you hold on. You just open this can and now you're going to eat it.
Oh, no.
So I am saying that if somebody breaks into your house and attacks your children and your husband, that you don't have a right to get a gun and shoot that person dead. Because then you're taking the law into your own hands. And That's not just. The police should handle it. Is that what you're telling me?
No, I'm not. I'm not telling you anything. I'm not saying what I
Okay.
believe. I'm not saying what I believe. I'm telling you
I'm just
theory.
trying to...
Okay, yeah.
Because now let's extend that out. There's a store a block away. You've known the people for 15 years. And you happen to have your handgun with you. And you see a guy come in there. And you see him shoot one of those people. And he's robbing that store. And you're already in there or close to there. Do you just walk away and call the police? You see? So if people step up instead of stepping away, this country becomes a lot safer place for our cops, for our children, and for our mothers.
But the thought of regular people going out with deadly weapons in their hands to make a point.
When you grow up with them, it's normal. You grow up with guns in your hands, hunting and fishing. A gun is just like a pipe wrench or a shovel. It's just a tool.
It's really not.
Yes, it is.
I can't kill 15 people from one space with a pipe, whatever you said.
Yes, you could. Oh, yeah, you give me a shovel, I'll be a nasty person, let me tell you.
No, you could. You said that your team members are going to hear this and say, holy shit, Casey, that was the one you didn't tell me about. But what about when your daughters listen? Do you feel differently about that? How does that feel in your gut, knowing that your daughters are going to listen to this?
Well, I told them that when this podcast finally started getting a toehold, they were going to hear some things about their father that they may not like and may not approve of, and that some people might even talk bad. And my daughter looked at me and goes, Papa, I'm not stupid. And that was my youngest. And I go, what do you mean? And she goes, Papa, come on. She goes, there's times we see articles in a paper or hear people talking about things, and it just happens to be the same dates where you just happen to not be around. She's like, Papa, we're not stupid.
When we first started talking, we were talking about your family, we were talking about your sister, and you said that when you first started talking to your sister about what you did, I think the exact phrase you used was, she said, that's horseshit.
Yeah, that is. And she's a, I can tell you this, she's incredibly refined and doesn't swear.
There are going to be people listening to this who don't believe you. You think maybe you are making it all up. What do you say to that?
I don't care. People are going to believe what they're going to believe, and they're not going to believe what they're not going to believe, and I don't care. I know what I've done. I didn't need anybody's approval when I did it, and I don't need it now. I'm completely happy by myself, and so is my team, knowing that the good that we did.
Next time on American Vigilante.
This was a woman that owned a major corporation, and she's like, KC, a law enforcement agency wants to contract you. Well, here I am, a 7-year-old little boy that's been drilled into me by my father to protect my mom, no matter what. But I went running back to my room, and I picked up my .22 off that gun rack, and I'm not supposed to touch it without my dad's permission. And I walked back into that kitchen, and I had it pointed right at my dad's belly. And I said, I'm going to kill you, Daddy.
American Vigilante is a Crowd Network original. It's presented by me, Sam Walker. It's produced by Phil Brown and Steve Jones. The executive producer for Crowd is Mike Carr. The executive producer for Stowaway Entertainment is Jeff Singer. The music we used is from our partners, BMG Production Music. If you want another Crowd podcast to listen to, try Murder in House 2. It's the story of how a group of Marines killed 24 innocent civilians in the Haditha massacre, and how the US government tried to cover it up. It's a 10-part series that took 15 years to make. It'll shock you, it'll make you think, and it will make you question everything you thought you knew about the Iraq War. Search for Murder in House 2 in your podcast app.
Crowd Network, a place where you belong.
Come to order. This investigation is convened by Lieutenant General James T. Mattis, commanding officer.
I want to tell you a story.
May I call your first witness?
Close your eyes. Explosion goes off. Boom!
We both yelled, clear.
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 It's a story about a crime that shocked the world.
U.S. Marines murdered innocent civilians in cold blood.
And a cover-up that reached into the highest levels of the United States military.
5, 6, 7, possibly 7 gunshots. I can hit the door.
It is also a story I recorded in secret.
Evidence collected. Departing House 2 at 15:55 due to a tactical situation which demands our departure.
So join me, Michael Epstein, as I reveal the truth about the longest, most expensive criminal investigation in U.S. military history. Murder in House 2, a 10-part podcast series available right now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.